Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's week 2. We're recapping it. And you know what? Let's get a yup.
Yeah, yup.
Anything in particular happened this weekend, Nick?
Well, I'm not a big math guy, Drew, but I've got some numbers floating around my brain. Illinois, -2.5. Toledo, -7. Ohio, +3.5 at home. And Iowa, +3.5. Do these numbers mean anything to the listeners of the Midwest Blitz? They should, because these are the bangers that me and Coach Drew, mostly Coach Drew, helped you win money on if you were watching the show last week. Coach Drew, can you tell us a little bit about your mathematical fucking genius and all these bets that we hit over the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Midwest Blitz, me and Nick have been working all offseason tracking these teams. What you guys don't know, that we know, that you don't know, what we're trying to tell you that you do know, is that there is about over 100 games that DraftKings has to track. In the Midwest Blitz, we track 33 teams. Approximately, sometimes more, with national recognition. Well, let me tell you the good news about that. There's blind spots everywhere, right? An example is Illinois going on the road to Duke, -3. We just put in our pirate suits and travel down there as we go plunder some loot because DraftKings left it there. Ohio at home at a sold-out crowd. Are you kidding me? The defending MAC champs against Rich Rodriguez, who doesn't know what a Big Mac is? Because he loses against them all the time.
He just found out what the Big Mac is, didn't he, Drew?
Yep. The grandfather of the spread, which Nick knows all about. But I digress from them. Toledo spread, -7 against Western Kentucky. Come on now. Where are we? Iowa in a road game, in a rivalry game, they let it be +3 for the road team that's going to lose on a field goal regardless. And what was the final score? 16-13? Come on now, guys. Are we trying to help you win money or what?
Drew hit that +3.5, and I hit moneyline Iowa State. So we pretty much nailed that one, didn't we, Drew?
Yeah, teamwork. You guys ever see Pacific Rim? That's like me and Nick. I'm the degenerate gambler, and he's the math. He's the X's and O's guy. And when we're both in that mech of gambling, the mech machine, we hit our picks lately.
What's your percentage this weekend, Drew?
My percentage is damn near 95%.
I
did bet a lot. Yeah, I did bet a lot games this weekend, so that's why it's so high. I do a lot of singles and some parlays. I switched some money around and put it on the board. It's like a roulette board in my brain, but I put it on DraftKings. Now, we did miss Michigan, which we're going to get into later, right? Sorry about that.
Can't hit them all.
We can't hit them all, but we did hit at least 75% of the big games, which is better than we did last week. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, you can't do much better than that unless you're cheating. And we don't believe in cheating here on the Midwest Blitz unless we're cheating Las Vegas, and that's Coach Drew's specialty.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we are giving out picks now. We are now tweeting more. We're getting back onto our Twitter. We just got our blue check mark. You should be able to find us easier. We look legit. We got everything taken care of there. Look for us to give these picks live or days before. And if you can't remember, what's that one podcast called? You could always like and subscribe and turn on the alert symbol so when we do post these things, you can find us. We get it. It's a busy schedule, but you'll find time for the Midwest Blitz because we find time for you guys every week. Isn't that right, Coach Nick?
Look, the reason that Coach Drew hit so many bets over the last 3 weeks, including week 0, is because we have done all this research and we put our heads together, but he is the gambling mastermind. Look at that beard. That's a beard I can trust, and I do trust with my wallet when I make my picks with Coach Drew every week. I don't understand exactly how he does it, but he does it. It's a conundrum, but something fun to be a part of for sure. The guy, he makes these picks sometimes, and I'm like, Drew, what are you talking about? And then he's like, well, the running back goes here and this goes here and -3.5 on the road. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, Drew? And then he's right. And I'm like, well, I should have bet that shit, but I didn't. But I do now.
I think one of my favorite things I had to re-quote was earlier this week, I was making my picks for this weekend, and you responded with familiarity bias, which for any of you guys that don't know what that means, basically if I'm a Bears fan, which I am, then I bet the Bears win 17 games, and I always bet the money line with the Bears going to win.
But that's not what he did. Drew found the holes in Vegas's logic on a bunch of Big Ten and MAC bets over the weekend, and he hit almost all of them. And I'm like, okay, mad respect to Coach Drew. He's the gambling mad scientist here on the Midwest Blitz. Hey, Drew, can we go back to Iowa plus 3.5? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa versus Iowa State here on Midwest Blitz, the battle for the Cyhawk. Drew, what did you notice about this game that we didn't already notice when we predicted it and we hit money line and point spread? What are your thoughts on this game, Coach Drew?
Yeah, one of the things that I realized about this game was, A, it's a rivalry game. Statistically, which is a bettor's fallacy. If you look back in a lot of the games, it's always won and lost by like 3 points of recent. It doesn't matter where they're at. I mean, this is just factual. They both know each other really well. And plus, since Iowa, which, I want to touch base on, doesn't have a modern offense, you're not going to score a lot of runs in it. You're going to run the ball a lot, but you're not going to score you're not going to get a lot of touchdowns.
You see what I mean, fans? Here, Drew, can I do my Iowa State analysis right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question back to the gambling thing is, can two wrongs make a right? Because when we made our bets last week, you bet points, Iowa plus points, 3.5 on the road. And I said money line, and I felt like we were contradicting each other, but we actually met in the middle. So two wrongs can make a right, and you can win two bets, not on the same sports gambling app, but we both won our bets on that game. So let's go to Iowa offense versus Iowa State defense. Iowa had 131 rushing yards and 83 passing yards. We want to, and I think we might still see Mark Gronowski, the South Dakota State transfer for Iowa, produce a more creative offense, or we hope we're going to see that. But 83 passing yards versus 44 week one, not the output that you needed to beat a Cyclone team who was already battle-tested going to Ireland to beat Kansas State in another rivalry game of week 0. Iowa State ran for 104 yards. Go back through for 134 yards. And, Drew, I see a pattern here with Rocco Becht that he doesn't have to throw for a lot of yards to beat you, because situationally, when the game's on the line, when you need to move the sticks at the end of the half, at the end of the game, Rocco Becht kind of is that dude. Both teams forced a turnover. Iowa had a forced fumble. Iowa State had an interception of Gronowski that Drew pointed out was on I believe like a hitch route towards the sideline that was thrown way too late, was a bad read. So that was a good lookout by Coach Drew. Coming out of this game, losing on a field goal at the end of the game, which we predicted would happen. The Cyclones are set up nicely with 2 wins to start the season, not against 2 weak opponents. So they're kind of battle tested going into that Big 12 schedule. And I'm sure they enjoyed Army's upset of Kansas State over the weekend, which, we may or may not touch on later in the show. But I've got family that went to the military academy at West Point, which is a special place. If you ever get a chance to go there, definitely check it out. And the Hawkeyes, coming out of this game, are still going to drive a lot of Big Ten teams crazy with their combination of defense and just hard-nosed, tough physical play. If you make a mistake, the Iowa Hawkeyes will take advantage of it. The problem in this game is Iowa State just didn't make that many mistakes. What do you think, Coach Drew?
Yeah, Campbell's hat was really dingy and almost like sun bleach. He didn't change out his hat, which goes to tell you that coach has wore that hat a long time on that sidelines, and he's done a lot of thinking. He's actually could be the child of the Iowa's head coach. And let me just say something. This is giving me some Tom. Nick's laughing over here. It's giving me some Tom Landry kind of comparisons here. Let me just kind of draw you a picture here. If we went back in time and we pulled up to the original Rutgers football coach and we brought him to now, and we're like, how do you call an offense? You'd probably give a wishbone and He would never throw the pass. And apparently, I can't hold it in. Apparently, that's the same in Iowa as well. Even though you go into the damn transfer portal and you go get a guy who can pass and ball and move around, you still only got him checking down to the sticks and have nothing, no game plan, any receiver to go on the 10 or 15-yard line. And when he does have to pass it, there's less than a minute to go, and it's go time.
Okay, Drew, I knew you were going to do this to me. Okay, Iowa's lack of offensive creativity is absolutely infuriating. When they went 5 wide receivers at the end of the game, when they had barely completed a pass the whole game, I knew this fucking game was over. And Drew knew that I tried to brush over this. And Drew, shame on you for doing this to me. But golly, gosh darn, gee willigers, for all you people from Iowa, holy crap. Dude, you have a mobile quarterback. There's a way to utilize him without using him like the second coming of Tim Tebow and running him up the middle every time. And even Tim Tebow had a jump pass he could use at Florida. In a misdirection, a something, a this, a that. You cannot go run heavy power football the whole damn game and then go 5 wide at the end of the game. And I saw Gronowski when they were running the 5 wide receiver offense at the end of the game. And I texted Coach Drew and I'm like, they're fucked right now. There is absolutely no way this is going to work. Did they complete like 1 pass in that series? I mean, it's embarrassing.
Well, like, you umpire baseball games, and I coach baseball, and there's a tradition in college baseball. This is tying in some other sports. You know, when the pitcher throws 10 balls in a row, they're like, it's not even 10 balls. It starts after 4. But they go ball 5, ball 6. I mean, Iowa State fans could have been run the ball 8, run the ball 9. It's bad when Gus Johnson can't even say jitterbugging because he would have literally had to say that the whole damn cast. I told Nick, I was like, I didn't hear one jitterbug. They probably had to remove that word from Gus Johnson. It was like, hey, the whole game is jitterbug. And we don't want to hear you say it every time. The Iowa running back is jitterbugging. The Iowa running back is jitterbugging. The quarterback's jitterbugging. Could you imagine getting 3 jitterbugs in a punt?
Can we talk about the slow mesh read option? The slow mesh. And it worked the one time. And like, for those of the you who are not watching visually,
they're trying to modernize their offense, Nick. They have to move slowly.
We all know what a read option is, right? I mean, you're going to test the in on the line of scrimmage. He has to have either the running back or the quarterback. For Iowa, they're like, it's like making popcorn. Very appropriate, right, Coach Drew?
Yes.
And we're going to hold the mesh point, and we're going to hold it, and we're going to hold it, and we're going to hold it, and pop, 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 pop. And then we hand it off, and we get 1 yard. So it's like if you burned the whole bag of popcorn. It was something to behold, for sure.
Well, you know what? I honestly, almost, besides my Pirates kit, I was going to dress up in a Gettysburg Union costume, and I was going to get on my saddle and go, reporting from Ames, the Battle of Ames. Because that's when the offense,
for sure.
The Battle of Ames was fought very well as we kept rushing their lines because we can't pass them any artillery. We didn't invent that yet. I'm from the future. Like, I was going to read it as a letter, as an old-time letter. But then I was like, nope, that would be more effort than they gave on offense for a fucking offensive scheme if I would have done that. I mean, it's bad enough where, like, compared to Nick's football knowledge of calling a game, I almost need how to run an offense for dummies, right? I could have called the defensive fucking plays for Iowa. Campbell could have took the day off and just been in the stands with the crowd. I mean, it was so obvious. It's bad when the cornerbacks are down low and they can jump your stick routes because that's all you're calling the whole damn game. The whole game.
I will say this, and I think you're going to get back to this towards the end of the show, Coach Drew, that if I'm an NFL scout, and I'm thinking about this now as we look forward to and cover this game, if I'm an NFL scout and I'm looking to draft an offensive lineman, I respect an offensive lineman from Iowa so damn much because the defense knows you're going to run the ball, and they still go out there and they will fist fight you for 4 quarters. I mean, you get an offensive lineman from Iowa, they might not be a 5-star recruit out of high school, but they're a 5-star badass dude coming out of college, because that is some old school in the trenches play that Iowa employs. And Jennings Dunker and Logan Jones at center, those guys are going to have good NFL careers, not just because of their athletic ability and their knowledge of the game, but they've been tested at a high level playing in an offense where they basically carry the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, we will get that in later, but Iowa, I mean, they gave Gronkowski 6 seconds back there. I don't know how much more time you need to get rid of a ball, especially in a stick situation. They're not going anywhere beyond 10 yards. Everybody's already in their spot. I can go all day for this game. Are you ready to move on to Illinois and Duke?
Yeah, Iowa State's making me sad now, Drew, but it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to go ahead over to the Dukes. Duke, right? A basketball school. If you guys watch College Game Day, I'm flipping back between College Game Day and Big Noon, you would know that Trey was picking all the basketball schools, and when it came up to this pick, you know, he's opposite of Pat McAfee. He goes, "Oh, I know a guy from Duke, so I'm going to pick Duke." And I'm over here shaking my head. I'm like, whatever, this nerd from Oklahoma. And I was like, you know, Illinois -3. They're coming in this game. Nobody believes in them. Nick, go ahead. What do you got to say about this?
Well, whether you had Illinois -2.5 like I did, or -3, it didn't matter, because Illinois took care of the basketball school, which is still a basketball school. So the story of this game is a story of two teams with very different approaches. Illinois came in ready for a 12-round championship fight, ready to go the distance with their strategy, ball control, defense first, incorporate the run type of strategy. I don't want to say it was old school football, but they definitely came out with all phases of the game in mind. Duke came out throwing haymakers early in the passing game, as I think we predicted here on the Midwest Blitz in our last episode. I told you that Duke was pass heavy. Did I tell you that, Coach Drew?
Yeah, you did.
Duke comes out throwing the ball around the yard. Duke had 438 yards of total offense. The Tulane transfer, Mensah, threw for 334 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. And in the highlight reel, and I do think that kid's a pretty good player, but Illinois forces 5 turnovers. This offense started slow, but then as the game went on with the turnovers, they continued to have a run and pass balanced approach. Illinois had 31 passing attempts, and then I think they had 37 or 38 rushing attempts. So if you have been listening to the Midwest Blitz, teams that throw more than they pass are either behind or they have a bad game plan. If you can't establish some kind of run game, it puts your quarterback in jeopardy. Now, let's talk about the Illinois defense for a second. The Illinois defense, as an IU fan, is terrifying because they play on September 20th here in a couple weeks. Sorry, Drew, I had to jump to the IU matchup and all that, but Illinois...
Maybe you'll see us there, Midwest Blitz.
Well, yeah, we'd love to see you at the game in Bloomington, September 20th. Gabe Hawkes for Illinois, the outside linebacker, edge rusher, all-everything linebacker for Illinois. He had 2 forced fumbles. Matt Bailey had a forced fumble, defensive back, and Tanner Heckel had 1 forced fumble and an interception. So Tanner Heckel is going to make my no-fly zone all defensive back players of the week list for his performance with a forced fumble and 2 interceptions. Mr. Hawkes might make his way in there too. I will say, Duke, that Vincent kid had 2.5 sacks. He had some fancy sack dances too. I think he's doing some kind of NFL audition with those sack dances, but he was getting after Illinois' quarterback, Luke Altmaier, in the first half. And I was a little worried about Illinois at that point. But by the time the second half came around and Illinois had stifled Duke's offense with turnovers, it kind of slowed down the Duke pass rush, and Illinois really just took control of the pace and flow of this game. And I think Brett Bielema, that's the kind of game that he wants to play against a team that just wants to throw. Bielema, an offensive line guy, a buffet buster after my own heart. It's not that they're afraid to throw, but they're going to establish the run, and they're going to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Duke never really established a running game, as this game went along. I also want to mention Hank Beatty for Illinois, the wide receiver, had 128 yards receiving and had one of the sickest wide receiver reverses on a run for a touchdown where he had to make a nice cutback and then was contested on the way to the end zone. Hank Beatty's one of my ballers of the week. That guy, that reverse run was so awesome. It reminded me of my favorite player, Antoine Randall from back in the day. I mean, reverse field, cut, juke into the end zone. So coming out of this game, I will say, for all the people that don't respect Big Ten football, people south of the Mason-Dixon line, they think we don't play football up here in the northern part of the country. Duke's home crowd was pretty lame. I don't think they had a lot of crowd noise. I saw Altmaier scramble for a first down, and he went out of bounds. He was tackled out of bounds, and then he looked up to the crowd and was like, "I see you, Illini fans." It was pretty great to see him do that, but Duke's fans didn't really show out for this game. And
they also left early.
Yeah, pretty weak. Well, that's why they call it a basketball school.
Yeah, it's not good when you hear ILL, INI on the road. And it's a trip to go from Illinois to Carolina where they're at. Like, that's not a short trip. It was pretty sad. If it was an NFL game, I get it. There's NFL fans everywhere, but a college game?
I think this Duke team has some potential, but they're definitely not a finished product. And I think that Illinois showed a lot of character, how they endured in this game. And then once they took the lead, they kept piling it on. So as a Hoosier fan, I'm a little worried about this Illinois team now, but they're going to face a tougher road crowd in Bloomington on September 20th. Bloomington, Indiana.
Well, at least Duke's head coach had he learned something this weekend, and also kind of the Duke fans as well, as they were booing Bielema when he was subbing out guys after Duke subbed out a guy. Like, you got to sub out your guy a little earlier. If you're going to take a guy off of less than 5 seconds, Bielema can respawn and take a guy out 5 seconds. It's a delay game on you. And you got Duke fans booing. You know, it's not even basketball season. You guys can look up the rules of how to, what the flags work like and all that stuff. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm glad you brought that up, Coach Troop. So this is the same thing that Coach Bielema did in the bowl game against South Carolina last year, where if he sees you making an offensive substitution, he's going to make a defensive substitution, which I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the college rules, but it allows him to stop you from snapping the ball, basically. And so Bielema, and as a ref, I really appreciate this. He understands the rules and is going to use it against you when you try to utilize the new substitution rules. He knows the counter to that, which allows them more time to get their defensive play call in. And that's what Shane Beamer was pissed off about last year during the bowl game against South Carolina, which I really enjoyed. Drew, I know we've talked about this on past episodes. I'm going to bring it up again. That bowl game between Illinois and South Carolina just made my day. I think it was a New Year's Day game. If it wasn't, it was over the Christmas holiday. I grew up with my family and with my dad watching bowl games over the Christmas holiday. And then we've been told that these bowl games are not fun to watch and that they're useless. They're not. The Michigan-Alabama bowl game was awesome last year, and the Illinois-South Carolina bowl game was also awesome. So make sure over the holiday that you turn these bowl games on and enjoy them with your family, because there is good stuff that happens. And Bielema was talking mad trash to Shane Beamer for South Carolina during the bowl game, and part of it had to do with Bielema's genius use of counter substitutions in this situation we're talking about. Drew, sorry, I probably went on a little too long on that, but Bielema, one smart cookie. A big old boy, one smart cookie, a buffet buster in my book.
Yep, from Iowa. You know, that's the thing, too, about him is he's a very smart coach. Again, I said this. You know, a lot of people, I know you're an Indiana fan, and I have some family from Illinois, and I'm not trying to throw smoke in the mirrors. I'm not trying to do anything. I get why they're up where they're at in the polls, and I think he understands where he's at in the polls. Sometimes you get coaches that are in these high positions and they don't know what to do. He's out here playing chess while other people are playing checkers, and we love that in Midwest Blitz, as we love playing chess over here.
No doubt.
You got anything else to add from this Swamp and Bacon 45-19 game? Anything you want to add?
Selfishly, I look forward to this IU-Illinois game on September 20th. It could be a real banger, man. I think it's going to be a
fun
great
one.
game. Yeah.
It's going to be a great game. Absolutely. Well, now we're going to head down to Ohio with a sold-out crowd playing West Virginia and Rich Rodriguez. Now, we were talking about this game while I was scrolling through all the stuff. So many of you guys, if you guys don't know this, I come up with the games that we review and spotlight and all this stuff. And as I was going through, I found a cookie. And we also betted on it too, and won. And that cookie was Ohio was plus 3.5 at home. And I told Nick, I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say.
Yes, sir.
How is Ohio, the MAC champs, plus 3.5 against West Virginia, who hasn't been good since Iowa was running the ball real well in the 70s when Marshall's plane crash went down? RIP to them. I mean, what relevancy did we think that Rich Rodriguez was going to go in there and do something with Parker Navarro, one of our MAC all-conference guys? Like, what were they thinking there, Nick? Got me all fired up.
I love that, Coach Drew. I was thinking that the Bobcats and Coach Drew got a 3.5-point gift.
At home. Sold-out crowd. Bobcats roaring.
Bobcats everywhere. Remember the firecracker analogy that we used when we did the pre-game breakdown last week? I said Rich Rodriguez's offense is like a firecracker thrown on a roulette table. They could score a lot of points or they could explode and kill themselves. Is basically what I said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of those things happened and the other thing didn't happen. They didn't score a lot of points. The Bobcats won 17-10 at home. Sold out crowd for the Bobcats. Shout out to the MAC. We love the Mid-American Conference here on the Midwest Blitz. So the Ohio Bobcats had 429 yards of offense, 247 passing, 182 rushing, and one of the golden children, a golden child of Midwest Blitz, Parker Navarro, actually did not have his best game. He had 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions to add to that 247 passing yards. But, dude, Bangura, the running back for Ohio, he's kind of a dog, man. He had 20 carries and a touchdown on the goal line where he had to lower his shoulder and, do some work to get in there and score, but we love Bangura. We still love Parker Navarro. I think that Rich Rodriguez is just lucky that Navarro had an off game because if not, Ohio would have blown West Virginia out in this game. But, all right, let's give a shout out to West Virginia defense. They picked off Navarro 3 times, one of them from Darian Lewis, one of them from Ben Cutter. Ohio also recorded an interception by Cam Hollingsworth. But let's look at this from the Ohio defense. They allowed 72 rushing yards versus a Power 4 team. Again, Rich Rodriguez incorporates a spread option. He is a father of the modern spread option attack. The defense allowing as little on the ground as they did versus West Virginia is impressive for the Ohio Bobcats, who had a really good defensive performance against Rutgers. Was that week 0 or week 1, Drew?
Which game was that again? The Rutgers was week 1.
Yeah. Ohio's got a nice defense. I know they have the best quarterback in the MAC. If Parker Navarro doesn't get an NFL contract, then I'm not sure what NFL GMs are looking at. This kid can ball. I know that he had an off game this week, but West Virginia had a lot of athletes, and they had a pass rush after him that he hadn't really faced yet. But we're pro Parker Navarro. So my final note is Bobcats win despite 3 interceptions from Navarro. Definitely looking like a real MAC contender right now. And Ohio should have won this game by more, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Parker Navarro at least was given the opportunity to throw the ball. I'm so glad Parker Navarro didn't get offered to go to Iowa if he would enter the transfer portal, because then he would just be running the ball and handing the ball off. I mean, they have a kid from Naperville, which is the suburbs of Chicago. Now you get why a lot of people don't like Naperville kids. I mean, I support Gronkowski. I got nothing bad with him, but sometimes you just need to do some more stuff than just hand the ball off the whole time or run with it as your quarterback. Parker Navarro throwing 3 interceptions. I get it. If you watch Ohio's game, he gets there's a lot of times where he hits people in the chest and they drop it. So some of it's frustration, and then sometimes it's a broken play, and he's trying to give themselves the best opportunity to tip balls and everything. Those are problems that do happen and occur. But yeah, 3 interceptions. Let's try to keep that to a minimum this year, Parker. But again, great job overall. Getting yourself a win in the win column, defending at the Bobcats. Bobcat took down a Mountaineer. That's all I got to say, Nick. You ready to head out to Oklahoma?
After one more note, I thought that Ohio's defense might struggle more early in the season because I know they lost some pieces in the transfer portal. So mad shout out to the Bobcats defense and their defensive coordinator. Their defense has been rock solid at the start of this season.
Absolutely. Now, we watch College Game Day. This is where College Game Day was. We start off with Big Noon at the Cyhawk. Now, it was College Game Day was at Oklahoma for the Michigan-Oklahoma game. This was a big top 25 matchup as Michigan was trying to prove that they can take on opponents besides Ohio State and beat them, and Oklahoma was trying to prove that they're finally ready to go again. Try to win some national championships again when Iowa used to probably throw the football. Go ahead, Nick.
What have we seen?
Right there.
Sorry, I had to wet the old whistle there. What have we seen so far this season? I mean, we could go back through college football history for 183,000 years if we had played it that long. What have we seen about hyping young quarterbacks in road games early in their career? Arch, CJ Carr, even though CJ Carr played well, you go on the road with a young quarterback in his first tough road start, the odds are it's not going to result in a win. So what that equals is blind faith. And so this is something I want to talk about as we progress on the Midwest Blitz, is that if you're betting, whether literally or hypothetically betting on a freshman quarterback in a road start, or any young quarterback in a first road start against a ranked team, which I don't know if Oklahoma was ranked, but they had, some people thought, a top 10 defense in this game. If you're betting on them winning, dude, the quarterback who's a freshman or a sophomore is not going to win the game for you on the road. So unless you can just beat the stuffing out of them in the run game and stifle them with your defense, that's not a recipe for success. Like I said, Arch, CJ Carr, who else are we forgetting about here? There were some other young quarterbacks in the road who the mainstream sports media was acting like we're going to come in and be the savior. It's not a fair expectation because as we talk about here on the Midwest Blitz, the quarterback is not like a pitcher in baseball who's going to throw a no-hitter by himself. He needs people to block for him. He needs people to run the ball. He needs people to catch the ball. So this is not we're not questioning Bryce Underwood as a talent or as how good he's going to be moving forward, but this played out the way we've seen other early season games play out. So little football lesson in case you guys hadn't noticed that. So Michigan really didn't generate much offense at all besides in the third quarter where Haynes had a 75-yard touchdown run, right, Coach Drew?
Yeah, he did.
And, okay, Donovan McCulley, the IU transfer, they ran a wide receiver reverse with him, and I like Donovan McCulley. He's from Indianapolis, where I sit right here in this chair. I like Donovan McCulley. Don't have a problem with him. They ran a wide receiver reverse with Donovan McCulley, and I just want you Michigan fans and everyone else to know he ain't that fast. So I don't really understand that play call, unless they were going to run a wide receiver reverse pass because he played quarterback in high school and did play quarterback at Indiana initially, but there was some questionable play calling. I do think they did a good job of protecting Underwood. He was 9 of 24 passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But I think they ran some of this misdirection like the reverse play I just talked about because they didn't want to maybe stifle his confidence on the road and force him to throw in difficult situations. Drew, I want your opinion on that here in a second. But so 0 turnovers is a positive for Michigan in this game because they're not going to be penalized for this road loss if their record is good enough to be in consideration for the playoff. I do want to say that I think John Mateer at Oklahoma, who brought his offensive coordinator, or maybe vice versa is a better way to say that. John Mateer is for real. He was 21 of 34. They were 9 of 17 on third down. That's nothing to shake a stick at against a Michigan defense that's loaded with talent, speed, and hitters. I love this Michigan defense. I really can't give them enough love. I would say I was shocked, though, at the Michigan defense. In the first half, Oklahoma ran a jet sweep in the red zone, and they acted like they were shocked that the jet sweep came. And by shocked, I mean their gap integrity on the jet sweep was horrible. So the guy from Oklahoma that came in motion and received the handoff / pitch forward from Mateer, he got in the end zone so easily. I was really surprised by that on Michigan's end. But I think Michigan's defense is badass. I think they're going to have a great season moving forward on the defensive side of the football. Hopefully the offense can catch up to the defense. And I will say, though, Michigan's defense did create 2 turnovers that the offense couldn't capitalize on. So I am high on Michigan defense and still waiting on Michigan offense.
Well, Michigan offense, I'll touch on that because I was watching this, and well, my Chargers beat the Chiefs earlier this week as well, and Jim Harbaugh's there now. And when Jim Harbaugh was at Michigan, he would run a bro style running offense. And as we record this podcast, McCarthy will play the Bears on Monday as we're doing this on Sunday. And one of the things, the reason why I'm mentioning that is because J.J. McCarthy was showing some signs of regression at camp, or maybe wasn't throwing it right. And some of the people were joking and were like, did you tell him to try to hand off the ball 100 times? And that was the same strategy that they're now running still at Michigan, is trying to hand off the ball maybe too many times. Not like Iowa too many, but enough to really get you. Nick didn't laugh at that. I thought he was going to laugh at that more. But just tugging at the Iowa, you are in my pisser right now. You are not making me happy. All right, back to Michigan talk. So again, we're looking at this offense. They're handing the ball off a lot. Bryce Underwood is a young quarterback. Again, we're talking about some of the quarterbacks that Nick was referencing to that we missed was, I believe I just wrote it down, Julian Lewis out of Colorado, 5-star, who was benched, and then Julian Seon, who hasn't been challenged on the road yet. Those are some high-touted quarterbacks that came out and are playing that are young. Going back to, again, Michigan, don't want to jump too far around as we take a second.
Sorry, my dog just got a little excited.
Yeah, so you'll hear it in the edit that we kind of paused for a second. All right, back to scheduling. Bear didn't like my segment about going around everywhere. He's like, get back online, Drew. All right, so back to Michigan. One of the things, and this is what Nick was talking about earlier, Bryce Underwood's footwork, okay? Let's talk about it, okay? I might not know a lot, but I'm pretty sure I can call a pretty good quarterback. That's one of my favorite positions to study. I mean, that I like to look at and observe. One of the things that I like to say is he was poached from LSU, from Bayou Brian, and then he got all that money to go be quarterback at Michigan. Did they tell him that he actually has to learn how to play quarterback, or are they just paying him to go run around and play backyard football? There was a pass about 30 to 40 yards deep that he could have made, right, perfectly, but then he jump throws sideways. He didn't have to, and the ball falls short. That's a touchdown for Michigan, and they're back in this game. The footwork is terrible. I'm guaranteed that they're going to be like, oh, he's the next great thing. Get it. Caleb Williams does that too. But if you watch Caleb Williams when he does this stuff, it's because he's on the run and he has to be creative with his feet. Bryce Underwood is like doing a 360 no-scope. Like he's Kyler Murray playing Call of Duty. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I noticed some differences between the play calling by the Michigan offensive coaching staff and some differences, like you're saying, with Bryce Underwood's delivery. And like I said, I'm not trying to bash the kid. It's his first big road start, but I think that it would be easier for them to get the offense going and involve him if they would have done more of what they did week 1. And that's not to baby him or act like he can't throw the ball, but they moved the pocket. They moved the pocket for him week 1 and had run pass options, and not the like Curtis Rourke at Indiana last year run pass option where he hands it off or he throws a bubble screen, but where they moved him to the perimeter where he was moving his feet and the defense had to account for him as a runner. I thought that they would do more of that in this game than what I saw. I don't think it was maybe the best game plan, but I guess when you get behind early, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I think Underwood's going to be fine, but yeah, he's not he's not ready to be a drop back passer, just like Arch Manning's not ready to be a drop back passer against a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
And maybe this Oklahoma defense is a top 10 defense, as we hypothesized in the preseason, and as Phil Steele stated.
Well, they do look Clemson-ish with Brian Venables' defense.
Venables, yeah.
Yeah, he did
Defense
take care of that.
pretty
I mean,
good. He's calling the defense again. Yeah, and see, with a guy like Venables, because I used to call defense too, I can't imagine giving up the reins of that horse that I raised and nurtured and then let somebody else call plays. Dude, Venables calling defense again. That's a good thing to bring up, Drew. I'm glad you brought that up. That's dangerous because it's just like calling pitches in a baseball game, Drew.
mm-hmm.
Knowing the batter, knowing the down and distance in football, calling defense it's more of an art than a science. And you can see like, oh, I'm the defensive coordinator. They're going to line up in bunch trips. Oh, I'm going to call my green dot and be like, bam, we're going to line up like this, then we're going to retreat into this, or vice versa. We're going to show blitz, or we're going to retreat out of blitz. We're going to do this. We're going to play all these mind games. And Venables knows how to do that. That's how he got the Oklahoma job, was by being a great play caller on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, yeah, and their defense was layered in a certain way. So when, Michigan went that one way, which is running the ball consistently, they made themselves one-dimensional, and Venable just ate it up. It doesn't help when one of the best catchers, Zavada, misses a field goal. That doesn't help. It doesn't help. It doesn't help when, things aren't going right. One of the things, I don't know if they're going to mention this a lot. This is something I noticed because they, obviously, ESPN controlled where the camera's at some time. Bryce Underwood had to be separated from Haynes, during the game because he was very frustrated. And they almost got into it. I don't know if it was almost a fist fight. ESPN might have been hyping it up a little bit. Curve Street, but Bryce Underwood's getting into his face. Now, this is interesting because, okay, does it show Bryce Underwood is a competitor? I'm not saying he's not a competitor, but he also has to understand that all the lights are on him where he's at. This is his first time in the show where Haynes, he's a transfer from Alabama. He comes from a good culture, and I don't think I'm curious. I didn't get a chance to really see what happened in air quotes that made it. Maybe it was a misassignment, but you can't, as a quarterback, you just can't blow up on people like this. You just can't. There's a way to approach people, especially in battle. And I think there has to be maturity from the 18-year-old early on if you want to be a champion at Michigan. Is there anything else you want to add, Nick?
I'd rather see a young dog that's got fight and we can coach it out of him than somebody who doesn't have a fight. So, yes, he has to mature and improve, but I appreciate that he wants to win. Because, look, they gave this kid a lot of money, and we can talk about NIL, and we don't like to do that a lot. And I'm not disagreeing with your point so much as I'm trying to add some context to it. Dude, this kid's got $1 million in the bank. He could go out there and roll over like a fat, spoiled puppy dog, but he's out there fighting because he wants to win. Justice Haynes and hopefully the rest of that Michigan veteran players, veteran coaching staff, recoiled his spring in a direction to jump in a positive direction. But I do appreciate that the kid wants to win. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I don't know if that's going to matter later on or that's going to be fixed. Again, having good bite, I do agree, And again, we're not Mike Gundy. We don't talk about NIL on here. Our call
we don't
our
want
opposing.
to, yeah.
We don't call our opposing podcasts that make more money than us and why we can't do a better job here and why I can't have a better green screen. We don't do all that here on the Midwest Blitz.
No, we just produce.
All right, you got anything else on this game, Nick, before we go to the AP 25 wrap around call around the horn, all around the horn? Horn?
Just want to let you guys know, if you missed our rivalry team pen pal program, Michigan and Ohio State fans are already writing me letters for this program. We might have to read some early before the rivalry week at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to go to AP 25, top 25, and around the horn. That's what I call it. I couldn't think of it 2 seconds ago. So we're at the AP 25. Let's go around the news. We got Ohio State still number 1. Penn State's number 2. Oregon's now number 4. They jumped 2 spots up. Notre Dame didn't do anything this week. Now number 8, they went up 1 slot. Illinois with a statement victory against Duke went up 2 slots. Indiana is now 22, was 23 last week, went up 1 slot. And Michigan, getting the Boomer Sooners, dropped 8 spots and are now behind Indiana in this horse race, 23 outside looking in. Notable things also I want to mention about the top 25. FSU is now a top 10 team. They started off the season unranked, and they also only won 2 games last year, which got Nick all fired up. How does they become a top 10 team instantly? Then you have USF, which at least beat Boise State and ranked Florida, which we're going to talk about briefly for a second. Now 18, all right? Florida's out. Arizona State's out, as SMU's out of the AP right now, outside looking in. I was also looking there. USC was getting some votes down there as well. They're creeping in the top 25. I don't want to get somebody nervous who lives in Valparaiso, but I just want to mention USC's creeping. Army, Kansas State.
Well, so I'm pumped about the Black Knights beating Kansas State. Does this mean that Kansas State's not good, or does it mean that Army's better than I thought they were? Because last week, Army got thumped on a little bit, and I said I thought expectations might be too high based on the point spread. And look at the Black Knights pulling out a win against what was supposed to be a college football playoff contender that now starts 0-2 in the Kansas State Wildcats. Man, how fast our hopes and dreams die in the game of football, right, Coach Drew? You go into Farmageddon week 0 as Kansas State, and now you're 0-2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolute craziness that happened. I mean, you go to Farmageddon, you play against Iowa State, you make Iowa State fun to talk about, and then out of nowhere, you just roll over. And I bet you Iowa State's pissed because now that, Kansas State's not doing good, it's going to hurt them in their whole scheme of things to get to the college football playoff if they can continue on the road they are as well.
Did you say South Florida's ranked now?
South Florida is ranked. University of Southern Florida is ranked.
Did you say 18?
The Bows.
Is that what you said?
18, correct.
So Indiana wins week 1, drops from 20th to 23rd. South Florida goes from unranked to ranked 18th. I'd like to write a rivalry team pen pal letter to the Associated Press and tell them to go do all kinds of things that I'm not going to say right now because you think it would be funny if I did it. I'm going to say this. You people, the AP voters, do not watch these games. You don't watch them. You don't know jack shit about football. This is not disrespect to South Florida that I'm saying this. It's disrespect that team that made the college football playoff drops 3 spots after a fucking win. But then a team that so South Florida beats Kansas State, and now they're 18th, and somebody else drops 3 spots after a win. This is partly why, please clip this. This is partly why I take the time to do this at midnight on a Sunday night when I could do something else, is because I want to let all you dumbasses that have a vote and no integrity, 0 integrity plus a vote. You don't know shit about football. You have no integrity. You have no intention of even understanding how good the teams are. You have an agenda to promote some teams and not other teams. Congratulations to South Florida, the AP voters who dropped Indiana 3 spots and then put South Florida at 18 when they weren't ranked. The AP voters that have Florida State in the top 10, congratulations to Florida State. I have no problem with you guys being ranked now. You jump from out of the rankings to 10. All you AP voters that do this, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it here first. Nick's obviously fired up, which I decided that I want to add a little Kendall, so I want to make sure I quote this one correctly. So let's look at AP Top 25. Also, if you guys are getting a little bit excited, Clemson dropped a couple spots because they spotted Troy 16 points, a 2-touchdown lead, and Clemson had a scrape back and comeback to win 27-16. Again, Troy, which is probably in the back end of 70th, 80th ranking. So again, AP, good job, because you got Nick all fired up at midnight Eastern time.
Sure. What's Clemson ranked?
12.
And I'm proud of Troy, the Troy Trojans, for going out there and throwing some haymakers against a very talented team that was
Yeah, they lost to LSU.
a very poorly coached Clemson team that pissed their pants against LSU. Congratulations to Troy. Some teams can lose or almost get beat by perceived lower level competition, Drew, and then they're still in the top 15. Other teams win and drop in the rankings. It's just food for thought for all you football fans.
Yeah, and I was going to save this for the next podcast, and I'm just going to reiterate it again. When USF plays Miami, I'm going to make a Nintendo reference. It's kind of like when you're playing Super Smash Brothers, and I know where you get a challenge mode. Like, we didn't even have this on the spotlight. I have to add this to the games. So, again, congratulations, USF. You know, you're down there. Florida? Yeah, Florida.
Hey, Bulls.
Hector?
We're for you.
Hector, I'm sorry. I know that's your Florida team, and you do cover them for 247 Sports. I am sorry. Notre Dame did lose to Miami, though, Hector, and Mikey still has me. So shout out to Tool Bags Up. So my former podcast people that I used to run that with. Sorry, you had to hear that. So are you ready to go to Ballers of the Week?
Sorry they had to hear me blow my top for a second, but I don't know how else you describe that. There's nothing to be taken seriously about early season polls and frankly about some of these people that have an AP vote. Yeah, let's do Ballers of the Week, Drew.
All right, let's head to Ballers of the Week.
Now it's time for Ballers of the Week. Our selections for top offensive skill players from this past weekend. Ready to put some points on the board? Here we go.
All right. So I got some Ballers of the Week. You got some Ballers of the Week. What do you got, Nick?
I got one Baller of the Week, and it jumped off the page at me. It's Hank Beatty had 8 catches and 100-something yards for Illinois at Duke in a big-time non-con win for the Illini. But it was the wide receiver reverse play for a touchdown where Beatty had to make a couple cutbacks and was contested on his way into the end zone. Hank Beatty, you get my game ball this week. You're my Baller of the Week here on the Midwest Blitz, and thank you for a wonderful play to watch. Drew, who you got?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I got Dante Moore out of Oregon. He had 3 touchdowns and 266 yards, right? I also added to my Ballers of the Week Aiden Childs. He had 4 touchdowns against Boston College in 2 overtime win. If you guys tune that on like you listen to Nick, if you've been listening, he said this Michigan State team's pretty interesting, and it's a sleeper team. Just so everyone knows, he has all his teams still going, and the sleeper agents are undefeated, unlike my Iowa team. And I have to hope the Nebraska survives somehow with Patrick Mahomes number 2. But going back to Adam Childs, not trying to take anything away from him, he's a good kid. I mean, he was celebrating. He hugged the sports announcer afterwards because he was so happy, and he goes out celebrating, jumps in the crowd, and he's just a good kid, something to cheer for. I'm glad we can add him. One of my other Ballers of the Week is going to be Justice Haynes out of Michigan. He had 125 rushing and a touchdown against Oklahoma, against Venables' defense. I mean, when you do that, anytime you get 100-plus yards against that defense, you got to be Baller of the Week for sure.
No doubt.
You want me to add some honorable mentions, or do you got anybody?
Let's hear your honorable mentions, Drew.
Yeah. So one of my honorable mentions is going to be Telly Johnson out of NIU. He broke away for his 74-yard touchdown. That was glorious against Maryland. I would know that because I use NIU. I'm the offensive coordinator in college football right now as I'm still the MAC, year 2. Telly did go on and graduate, and most of the offense left because they don't want to play the air raid. But I digress. This isn't about my college football team. This is about the real teams. Then I also want to mention, what's his name? Ryan Bowe out of Northwestern. Holy Toledo. He comes in as a quarterback. It's a blowout game. Northwestern's winning. Ryan Bowe runs down, stiff arms the cornerback, puts him in the grave, and scores a touchdown. I told Nick, I was like, man, we already got Ballers of the Week, and we're not even into Saturday's games.
Can I say something about...
Yeah, go ahead.
Aiden Childs is electrifying. That guy's got so much talent. Throws on the run, agile, keeps his eyes downfield. I just cannot rave enough about how much I enjoy watching Aiden Childs. And I'm an IU fan, and I'm supposed to hate them because of the old brass spittoon and all that. some of you guys don't know about the spittoon, but maybe we'll do some rivalry pen pal letters about the old brass spittoon later in the season. But yeah, Aiden Childs is a player that you want to watch at quarterback for the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also want to give another shout out to an honorable Midwest State. Honorable Midwest State. Look at that. We even give honorables to Midwestern states. Colorado's being misused. I just heard this on You Betcha podcast / YouTube channel where they're saying about Colorado, they go kayaking. In the Midwest, we kayak and fish, and how we would utilize Colorado better as a Midwestern state than what is being used as a West Coast state now. But I digress. Colorado's playing, and I want to shout out third string, 3 stars, jumped 9 stars ahead of him, jumped the 5-star quarterback freshman who wasn't getting the job done. The 4-star quarterback wasn't getting done. So then Deion Sanders like, well, there's this guy that's been here since last year. We might as well give him a shot. Goes in. I think he threw like 4 for 5 and had 2 TDs, and Colorado ended up winning that game. Now Deion Sanders is, just like Nick did, scratching his head because now he's like, well, I have 9 stars and I'm about to switch him out for 3. Now he has a problem because now he has to sit down Julian Love, I believe, or Julian Lewis. He has to sit him down and tell him, hey, buddy, you're not the starting quarterback anymore. Oh, I love it. Who's going to hit the transfer portal first, him or Amalivia? Because Amalivia is also 0-2. Go ahead, Nick.
So what do we say here on the Midwest Blitz? How many points is a recruiting star worth? 0. 5 stars,
Yep.
4 stars, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4, blah, blah, blah. Some Dr. Seuss rhyme you want to write about stars. I respect Coach Prime that he would bench the guys that had the recruiting stars next to their name and put in the guy who's balling out. And nobody knows more about balling out than Coach Prime. So that's a pretty fun story that you brought up, Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now it's time to go to the Buffet Busters.
Ring the dinner bell. It's time for Buffet Busters, our top offensive line performers of the week. Anyone in the mood for pancakes?
So I'm going to lead this one off. I got J.C. Davis from Illinois for a monster pancake block that he had against the Duke Blue Devils that Coach Drew also noticed.
Boom!
Kaboom! Kaboom, as John Madden would say. J.C. Davis, future NFL first day draft pick, and my buffet buster of the week. Coach Drew, who you got?
Yeah, I'm just going to give some honorable mentions to offensive lines. That's what I'm going with. I couldn't pick one. I can give them all roses, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them as a unit because, linemen got to stick together because nobody gives them credit, as why we're giving them credit here. I'm going to go with Iowa's offensive line. When you run the ball 12 times in a row, all right, if you ever get into the trenches and you run 12 times in a row, boy, you're going to be tired. Also, then you have enough time to, when you do the 12th snap, to actually throw the ball and hold the defensive line for 5 or 6 seconds, and you can't find a check down in the sticks. I mean, Iowa, you all get it from me. Now, I also want to give an honorable mention, or not an honorable mention, this is part of my pick, is the Ohio Bobcats offensive line holding off West Virginia. Nobody gave them credit. Nobody gave this team credit. They defended themselves on home turf, gave time to Parker Navarro, let Parker Navarro do his thing. They knew where to help him, where to push him, where to keep him safe, and they did their assignments, and guess what? That's why they end up winning 17-10. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, let's say something about this Ohio Bobcats offensive line facing off against a bunch of transfer portal guys that Rodriguez brought in there for the Mountaineers who didn't have a home somewhere else. But I think if we count recruiting stars for West Virginia, their defensive front against the Ohio Bobcat offensive line, I think there's some recruiting stars on one side and some actual stars on that Bobcat offensive line. So mad respect to the Bobcat offensive line in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you got anybody else to add to as well? Or we're ready to go to the trenches?
I'll touch on Iowa again. I mean, we kind of overlooked Iowa State. Their offensive line's been pretty baller all year, but let's give it to the Hawkeyes. If you've got a block, I mean, some of you guys that played, you've been on an inside run segment in practice where it's like it's inside run. So the offense is going to have to run the ball. So as a defensive lineman or linebacker, you get to tee off on those offensive linemen. The character and strength and endurance that the Iowa offensive line displays really kind of is emblematic of what it means to be an offensive lineman. And I just happen to be wearing this lineman shirt right now, but mad respect to the Hawkeyes offensive line. It may be the hardest working offensive line in college football, right, Drew? When you got to run the ball over and over and over and over. And they never give up, and their effort never wanes, even when the game is maybe out of question. That's a group that a young offensive lineman or offensive line coach should watch and have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, it's probably because they're doing a lot of old drills there, no modern drills, and a lot of people say that the new age is really like soft. So when you're doing those old lineman drills compared to the new lineman drills that are focused on passing and running, you can actually gain some skills there. Again, I'm gonna dig into Iowa all podcast long.
Because yep. All right, we see what you're doing there, Drew. It's almost like they're from Kansas. Would you like to move on to In the Trenches?
Yeah, we can move on to In the Trenches.
If you enjoy quarterbacks with grass stains on their jersey and pretty boy ball carriers running for their lives, this might be your favorite part of the show. It's time to go In the Trenches, where we celebrate the top defensive line and linebacker players of the week.
So this week in the trenches, I got one guy and one guy only that I want to give my game ball to, and it's Gabe Hawkes, who forced 2 fumbles against Duke. And the Illini other players had some pretty nice peanut punches and knocked some fumbles loose. Coach Drew appreciates the peanut punch reference to the old school Chicago Bear legend, Charles Peanut Tillman. Hawkes, 2 forced fumbles. I think he had 6 tackles and maybe a couple tackles for a loss in that game too. Really set the tone up front, Drew, as I predicted he would during our preview episode last week. So Gabe Hawkes, you get my game ball. You are in the trenches with us, my friend. Congratulations on the big win on the road. Drew, who you got?
Yeah, I got 2 units I'm going to mention. I'm going to mention those. Those are my honorable mentions. And then players, I have CJ Nunnally, the 4th. Purdue, he had 2 sacks. All right, Purdue's actually 2-0. I talked to a Purdue fan, and he's like, we're 2-0, and I can actually watch football before I have to turn it off, before we start getting slaughtered by our Big Ten opponents. So being self-aware is the first, when you have a problem, being self-aware is usually the first sign of, a good thing coming. So
you hear that, Purdue fans?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to support you. You guys are 2-0. We said it. You guys proved to us you can win. Hell, maybe you win 3 in a row. You'd be a top 25 team in the APIs because they don't know shit about football. So going to my other guy, we have Anthony Smith from Minnesota. He had 1.5 sacks, was in the trenches. He was doing the job. He was doing everything he needed to do to help Minnesota row their boats to another victory.
Minnesota,
which is a very well-coached team. We're gonna be hearing a lot of
We love Gophers.
Yep, the Gophers are gonna be looking good this season for sure. So I want to give a shout out to 2 units. One is Venables' Clemson defense. They held the run game, even though they gave up 125 yards. They kept the young Bryce Underwood in check and kept that score where they needed to be, and helped force an easy win for Oklahoma. The other honorable mention I would give is Iowa State. On the flip side, look at that. I gave honorable to Iowa and Iowa State because it was a damn battle. All right. First off, Iowa got in there. They had to push it. Iowa State had to stop it. And they did. We're giving them an honorable mention because Iowa State stopped the 500 rushes. I'm sorry, 25. Still, whatever. It's a high number. Maybe 35. We don't know. They don't know how to pass the ball. 40. Oh,
something like that. But yeah, no, that's Coach Drew. Mad respect for that pick because the one group on offense and the one group on defense definitely were having a fist fight all day long in the trenches. The Iowa offensive line and Iowa State defensive line, and neither one disappointed. It wasn't the linemen.
They both put up a fight.
Right. It wasn't the Iowa offensive linemen that caused them to have the lack of creativity and game plan that we've seen over the last few years. So, yeah, I love that pick.
Yeah, I mean, it was 4th and 1 in manageable yards, and, we just took points and we punted, so he must have been scared that Iowa defense was going to protect the trenches, or we don't believe in analytics because that didn't come out to post 1970 how to run an offense. So
I'm sorry, Iowa fans, but you
poked the bear.
The bear has been poked. Drew is the bear. And yeah, he's really pissed. He really believed in Iowa's offensive change of pace. Just like Notre Dame Tyler tried to get me to believe that their offensive change of pace was going to be good. And then we saw that worked out against Miami. So sometimes you change and it doesn't work. And sometimes, vice versa, the door swings both ways. But yeah, Drew's not happy with you, Iowa. You're going to be in the same boat as Kansas soon if you don't get your act together. Because Drew hates people from Kansas. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I don't know why. The corn tastes different in Kansas, and if you're from Kansas, Coach Drew doesn't like you. I don't know why, but I just want you to know that.
Exactly. We don't know why. It's a secret. All right, well, let's head to the no-fly zone.
2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third is covered by our next segment. Time to enter the no-fly zone with our top defensive back performers of the week.
So, the no-fly zone, I actually want to point out another Minnesota. We got another guy that I want to point
out.
John Nestor had 2 interceptions. Look at that.
What
a dog. And then I also have Lewis Moore from IU, who's a Hoosier.
Hoosiers.
Who plays for the 23rd ranked, 17th ranked AP wannabe team. Because they don't know how to rank defense. There goes Nick. He's getting fired up.
Do you think that Coach Cignetti, he's only been coaching for a few days. Do you think he's going to bring that up in the locker room when they play Illinois? Or do you think that he's just going to let sleeping dogs lie? What do you think, Coach Drew?
No, all I know is Cignetti's in a position to really rally the troops because nobody believes in his troops more than he does. General Cignetti is going to rally the rebels, like in Star Wars, to take down the empire of the SEC. I can see it now.
I apologize for ruining the no-fly zone segment and being on my high horse. Mr. Nestor from Minnesota, your 2 interceptions are not forgotten. You get a game ball. You are in the no-fly zone with us. I got Tanner Heckle from Illinois. I've got a Illini heavy player of the week segment. 1 forced fumble and an interception. Tanner Heckle is in my no-fly zone. He should be flying an F-22, right, Coach Drew, with Tom Cruise and the rest of the Blue Angels and all those guys. You don't mess with Tanner Heckle. He's a baller, along with some other Illini defensive backs that had good games this week. But yeah, Tanner Heckle's in my no-fly zone.
Yeah, and then also we have a tank that grew some wings as Alonzo Ford, a DT, also got an interception. So we want to give a shout out to when a big boy gets the ball intercepted, we want to let him know that tanks can grow wings too. I almost want to think, it's kind of like an old book that was read a lot in school when Iowa's offense was dominant again. Charlotte's Web.
God.
When you had to read Charlotte's Web, and the pig's talking to the spider and doesn't understand why certain things doesn't happen, that's kind of like when a big boy gets an INT. What's wrong, Nick?
Dude, you're killing me.
Well, at least we're having a good podcast.
When William Shakespeare wrote Hamlet.
Whoa, that's my...
Iowa's offense before the Gettysburg Address, Kirk Ferentz was the offensive coordinator for the Union Army.
Yep, he was just leading charges the whole time. If you also notice when he was doing those charges, there was no artillery to help. Because they don't believe in passes.
Cannons hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Nick can't even show his face. He's trying to hold it in.
I literally read a book about football before the forward pass was invented. I'm not sorry. There's no limit on how many times you're allowed to throw a forward pass. It's not like mound visits in high school baseball. You get 3 charged visits. You can throw the forward pass as many times as you want.
I would send Coach Ferentz an email, but I think I have a better chance of sending him actual mail, as
Well, Drew, you could send him a carrier pigeon.
I could.
You could.
Maybe I just sat up on my horse and ride down over there.
Starting in 1906, blockers were not allowed to link arms and block with their head leaned forward like this.
Sometimes when you turn the History Channel on at night and they're doing some classic Civil War stuff, you can see Coach Ferentz and the boys leading the charge with the Iowans.
God dang. Man, it's a good week to be a Cyclone fan.
Well, you know, when you screw me over and I hype you up about your quarterback, you better be ready, because it becomes a comedy show.
I'm glad you leaned on that harder than I did, because I kind of let you take it. I was kind of on there, but now, you have to own it, and, I'm here to support you. Jesus H, dude. How Iowa, holy smokes. You got anybody else in the no-fly zone, Drew?
So that's about it. That was it. The no-fly zone was brought to you by Iowa's offense.
No-fly zone.
Stay true to the run. Stay true to the run.
Man.
The no-fly zone is brought to you by Iowa State's defense, as they didn't have to play any balls at all because they knew everything on a check down was coming.
No-fly zone brought to you by the 2020 COVID flight lockdown and Iowa's offense.
So
true.
I think I can write out my next no-fly zone for anybody who's playing Iowa, because I know that they're not going to be passing the ball.
Is this
as Nick is trying to hold it.
This is our Midwest goodbye for this week, was just ripping Kirk Ferentz. Mad respect to Iowa's defense and offensive line.
Yeah, if you get this far in the podcast and you're at the end, you are just enjoying a comedy show of us just ripping it.
Coach Drew almost made me snort water out of my nose. You know what I want to say to end this selfishly again? Illinois at Indiana, September 20th is going to be such a fun game. I have a feeling that might be, if we could make a bet on this, I don't think we can. That's going to be a Fox Sports 1 noon kickoff. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's probably where Big Ten's going to be. Maybe college. Well, since we're doing a Midwest goodbye and I have time, I can check real quick. That is this week, week 4.
They won't have announced it yet.
No, they wouldn't have it announced. I'm just seeing if there's any games. Ew. Well, Oklahoma already had it. Utah, Texas Tech might be one. There's a lot of ranked matchups. Missouri just got in at 25. South Carolina.
That probably will be Fox Big Noon kickoff, because that is the best Big Ten game on that day, I think.
Yeah, no, it will be. There's no other games that would challenge it. Yeah, there's not.
For all of you that would suffer through with us this far into the show,
kind of like Iowa fans watching
like
the
Iowa
Cyhawk
fans
game,
watching the Cyhawk game, watching
12
the
times
run.
in a row. 3 drives in a row.
In the run again. Thank you for listening
Making
to
punters
Midwest Blitz.
famous, as Nate would say.
Oh, Nate, shout out to you. You couldn't have been any happier. You did. You didn't win you did win the battle, and you won the war, Cyclone Nate. Thank you, sir, for your letter. Thank you
Just
to
remember,
Hawkeye
Coach
Todd.
Ferentz won the Union.
Drew, what are you doing after this? We're already doing a Midwest goodbye. Is there, you got anything going on later? Are we just going to sit here and shoot the bull?
Yeah, we might just shoot the bull about Iowa, but that's all I got for today.
That's all I've got for today. Go away.
You ready to sign off?
Well, maybe. Do you guys want to talk about Kansas? I think Coach Drew has a thought or two he'd like to share about the state of Kansas.
Well, Kansas had Amelia Earnhardt. I mean, that's kind of good.
And Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, and they had
Dale Earnhardt. True or false? Let's post this on socials.
Did they invent basketball?
No, but James Naismith, who did invent basketball, went there. True or false, Coach Drew? Post this on the Twitters and the dark web.
What? What, true or false? The one about what?
Amelia Earhart or Amelia Earnhardt? Did Kansas invent basketball, or did James Naismith just coach their team? Who
Did Coach
invent
Ferentz
basketball?
invent the run?
He definitely didn't invent the forward pass.
As we found out this week in the Cy-Hawk. Well, at least you're joining the fun.
Football history on the Midwest Blitz. All right, Drew, I might be ready to sign off.
All right, well, this was Coach Drew.
And Big Nick.
Until next time, we'll
This has
catch you
been a-
guys on what.
This has been a Midwest goodbye. It ain't the first, and it won't be the last. Thank you.
We'll see
We'll see
you
you next
We'll see you
time.
Thursday.